Good morning. Today I thought I would try to unpack the issue or the subject of receiving guidance. And it's a great topic. It can illuminate a lot of the text in the workbook for us as we start to explore how do we come to Jesus or the Holy Spirit for guidance. And as with almost every topic, or I don't know if I even need to say almost, the issue of guidance is very holographic. So once you open that box, you're going to be exploring the entire teaching from this angle. So there will be a lot of repetition. But let's go back to the big picture video and remember that we are, what the Course in Miracles perspective is on what we are anyway, is we are decision makers in a dream. We're not really here, and this isn't really our home, but we don't deny what we think is happening. And if we've chosen the Course in Miracles as our path, we begin to use our lives and everything that happens to us, our thoughts, etc. We begin to give them a new purpose by asking for help. And that breaks this cycle that the ego would keep us in forever if it could, of reinforcing the reality of the illusion and the reality of our separation from God. And it would begin to use what we made to separate from God, the stream and the body and everything else, to awaken us. So it gives it, when we have that there must be a better way moment, and we open to something like a teaching of A Course in Miracles, we give the world and our lives in the world a new purpose. Okay? So that's the setup. So now guidance comes as a mechanism for achieving that. It's really important not to put anybody on a pedestal and to think some people have access to the Holy Spirit and other people are without, or they need to get more spiritual or whatever. That's just not true. We're all equal. We're all decision makers. If there's a difference, there's more readiness and willingness in some people, and that's only because they have been more they've seen more about the suffering they've experienced, and they're ready to be wrong, and they're ready to choose again. That's really the only difference. The Course says we're always deciding whether to listen to the Holy Spirit or to the ego's voice. And it goes on and on about why it's such a challenge to not listen to the ego. And so we know that. It's familiar, for one thing. And we're convinced that the ego is who we are. But the Holy Spirit is very present. It's just not going to talk over the ego. So what is that? Where does that leave us? It means that we have to make room for it. And that's really the difference between someone who receives guidance and someone who feels that they can't. So how I think of it is that if I have a problem that seems to be in my mind or my life, the first thing that I try to do is to remember the Holy Spirit's here, right here with me. And then I usually get a lot of workbook lessons that start to come into my mind to sort of put me in the proper attitude. And I remember that I want to see the problem as it truly is, not the way I've set it up. And I know I'm speaking to people who have a variety of experience levels with the workbook, so I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but I do want to say the workbook is really important, and that's where we begin to get trained to think differently. So it's a discipline, and it's something we work at every day. So back to the problem, I have a problem and I need to make room for the Holy Spirit. So how do I do that? I unpack my pockets. I pull everything out. So let's imagine, like I do, that there's an altar in front of me and I have my really good friend Jesus who's ahead of me, because he doesn't have any more investment in the ego and he's completed his part. So he's a clear seer. And so he's sitting there encouraging me, and he's encouraging all of us. He's very gentle, very understanding. And I'm saying, okay, I really want this to happen. Okay, well, that's honest. So let's put that on the altar. It could be anything. Let's say it's a job. Let's say I really want to get this job. Okay, well, let's turn it over. That's the first thing. And by that I mean, let's just be honest with the light in our mind that I want this. I think my salvation depends on it. I think my peace and my joy and my financial security and my function is dependent on receiving this job. Okay? Well, that's good. Let's just be honest. I'm really invested. And now let's see what other ideas are in there. Are there self-doubt issues? I don't know if I can really do this job. What if they don't like me? What if there's somebody that's better than me that's, I could have been better too if only I had, gone back to school like I promised my dad I would, or if I had stayed in that one job and, really tried harder, or if I hadn't burned that bridge that one time I made a mistake. Okay, see where I'm going? I'm unpacking all the ego's storyline. That's the fear. And that thread can go for on and on and on and on, right? So give it over. Just say, okay, I see that. There's a whole lot of past in this decision that I really need this job. And it's my interpretation of the past. And my interpretation that says something bad happened in the past. And I'm guilty and I'm going to be punished for it. Okay, well, let's give it over. What else about this job? Ooh, here's a good one. It's a future fear, like, it is going to require a lot of driving, and I'm not going to be home very often. And I really hate winters and having to dig the car out of the snow or scrape the windows of ice. And being in that cold car, oh, I hate that. And then I'm going to have all those meetings and conversations with people that I'm really not interested in. And when they make me sit at a desk, that really hurts my back. And I'm not sure if the pay is really good, and I'm not sure if it has enough potential future career advancement. And there's that one boss, and I didn't like him. I didn't resonate with him. See where the ego goes? So this thing that this object that the ego has told me is my salvation, if I go into super honesty with myself and I really listen to what it's also telling me about it, it's very conflicted. And there's an exercise in the workbook where we are asked to come up with a thing that we think we want to happen, and then we're asked to also identify all the contradictory goals. So that's what I'm practicing here. Before I try to receive guidance, can I get really honest with Jesus about my mind? I'm a crazy person. Look at all this contradiction. I don't know if I'm coming or going. I say I want it, and I say I don't want it. This is really easy to see sometimes when we have friends or when it's ourselves who are saying, I want a relationship. Maybe they want that new significant other person in their lives. And then their mind immediately goes, but I don't want to give up my free time, and I don't want anybody telling me what to do, and I da 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 da, and I don't want to get divorced, and then they put it in the future, and blah 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 blah, right? So no wonder the ego is a crazy place to live. It's full of anxiety to live in the ego. So my practice then is to unburden myself from all the things I think about something that I want guidance around. And one example for me personally might be trying to figure out what to do about my kids. As mothers, we're constantly, until we stop, worried about our kids. So all the things that I think it means about their future if they do this or they don't do this, all the things I think it means about me and my future, as well as my past and how it reflects on my mothering, and all of that, all that meaning has to be given over. Well, it doesn't have to be, but that's my process for really coming to Jesus for guidance. And what I need to also remember is that what I really want is not this specific thing, not this specific job or relationship or outcome with one of my sons. But what I really want is peace, and I want to know I'm loved, right? I want to know safety and love and peace. And Jesus just sort of smiles now, and he says, well, I'm really glad that you found that in you, that this is what you're really wanting. And you've made this circumstance and problem into a false idol in a way. And you've said, this is what needs to change or happen for me to have peace and love and a sense of abundance and security. And he's saying, now we really have something to work with, because you can have all of that right now. And that's what I do. I sort of sit there until I can remember what I really want. And I might not feel the safe feelings and harmony and love and peace in that moment. But now I know that I've turned over the situation so my ego can't use it against what I really want. And then I just go about my day. I have this feeling deep in myself that what is most helpful to happen will. And I have no clue what that should be. That's really the biggest part of receiving guidance, is convincing yourself that you have no idea. The second part, if there is a second part here, is to be aware now in my day of when the ego's going to come in versus when the Holy Spirit's going to come in. What it feels like, right? Because again, I'm always channeling. But at least now I've brought the Holy Spirit very close to me in my mind with the intention to put him in charge. He's in charge of my day, and now he's in charge of this big problem. And I want to receive his guidance, not my own, which only leads to suffering. And so now I go forward in my day, and what I've noticed is that when a Holy Spirit thought comes, it feels like it drops in out of nowhere with no attachments. It can feel very kind of random. And I call these prompts. And so you get the prompt to go for a walk. You get the prompt to make a phone call. You get the prompt to go to some Reiki class or go to a Reiki teacher, whatever it is. You feel that you are receiving a thought from some other part of your mind because you recognize that it didn't come out of thinking about something. It just sort of poofed in your mind, and you just say, okay. And what I do, if I'm not sure if this prompt to do something and take an action came from the Holy Spirit or the ego, I'll say, okay, Holy Spirit, if this is from you, make it really clear. And then, lo and behold, you see the billboard that says, go for a walk, whatever it is. Or you turn on the radio and there's a song about it. Or all of a sudden you get a download, you get images and thoughts, and you know that they feel good and they're not coming from the ego. They feel clear and clean and spacious. But it is also helpful and important, I feel, to still remain detached from outcome. So I make a follow-up call to some real estate agent about an apartment or a house that I want to buy because I have received what I feel is a strong prompt and I'm willing to follow. It's all about the willingness. But I have to remain in that willingness to not know what the best outcome is. So this is how Jesus works with us, right? Really, receiving guidance day to day, big problems or small, is still all about our one function, which is forgiveness. So as I move through my day, following my prompts and my guidance, I'm still watching my mind and seeing where the ego wants to come in and derail things or hijack for its own purposes or start to talk smack about the future or the past or, whatever it is. But that's the work. That's not a problem. It's just the work. So then you go, oh, okay. Yeah, I don't need to listen to you today. You go, thanks for your opinion. If you walk through this world in that way where you're just always letting go of what you think, remaining unattached to outcomes, you can be in the hurricane and in the center of it as everything around you is in chaos, and you just sort of are there to be helpful. And it becomes a very simple, quiet way of living. And you're always in your own business, allowing your mind to be healed by Jesus. But other people are receiving something helpful because you're doing that. And it doesn't look like anything in particular. I wanted to say one more thing too about when you seem to have a really desperate problem. There are hallmarks of the ego, and this great sense of urgency should be a red flag for anyone wanting to learn this course, because I need do nothing. There's a section in chapter 18, it's section 7, and it's called I Need Do Nothing. And it was written by Helen, or received by Helen, when she was in a snit over something that was happening. I think there was a strike occurring in New York City, and it was possible her elevator, at all the high-rise buildings that people live in New York, that they wouldn't have access to the elevator because of this strike going on. And so she was in a total snit about it. And remember, she was an incredibly split mind herself, so she was very fearful and anxious and angry, and she held grievances when she was in her ego mind. She was like extreme in that sense, and she was extreme in her ability to be in her holy mind. So she was a very helpful demonstration of what we all are. So she's in her ego mind as this is happening, and she's making all these plans and going through a lot of suffering. She would stew and suffer and fret and rail at Jesus and all of that. And so his teaching to her was about how to receive the holy instant and to remember that there's nothing here that we need to do. That when we feel that sense of urgency, it's the old pattern the ego uses, that's always revolving around the body and making sure that we're taking care of the body and its needs and its protection and enjoyment. And that is not a sin, it's just not real. And so Jesus is trying to gently tell her, and also us, that you don't need to do anything to preserve your body, because it's not real. So if you feel this sense of panic and urgency and all of that, just use it for how it can be helpful, which is to wake you up to the fact that you're in the ego. And I think about it for myself when I get into those snits, like getting really present with what's happening right now. Right now, Do I have a problem? Am I well fed enough? Do I have enough oxygen? Let's get to really basic things. Do I have shelter? Is everyone alive? You know? And then my mind goes, yeah. Oh, now I'm out of my hypnosis because I'm actually present with what's happening. I need to remember I need do nothing. But the ego is going to set up these scenarios, one after the other, again and again and again, to keep us on the gerbil wheel of Maya, trying to solve problems the ego's way, which is just a way to not solve problems, or to temporarily rearrange the deck chairs, as we've said, and keep us out of our true mind, which is where the Holy Spirit is. Now, the Holy Spirit is no dummy. He knows that we seem to have bodily needs, and we need some food, and we need some income, and we need some whatever. So he's not telling us to deny any of that and be silly. He's telling us to watch our minds. And then he's saying, let me be in charge, so that everything the ego made to keep you mindless, I use on your behalf to awaken you. So we find that we get the job or we don't get the job, but we have a little more peace either way, because every time we forgive the thing we think is causing us our pain or keeping us away from our salvation, we're undoing that attraction to the sin, guilt, and fear that's all made up anyway. So more peace can come in. And this is just how we live all day long for the rest of our time that we seem to be here. It's nothing extraordinary, although the peace is extraordinary. But it doesn't have to look a certain way. I thought I would read just a little from that section, I Need Do Nothing, chapter 18, section 7. This is paragraph 5. Your way will be different, not in purpose, but in means. A holy relationship is a means of saving time. One instant spent together with your brother restores the universe to both of you. You are prepared. And now you need but to remember you need do nothing. It would be far more profitable now merely to concentrate on this than to consider what you should do. When peace comes at last to those who wrestle with temptation and fight against the giving in to sin, when the light comes at last into the mind given to contemplation, or when the goal is finally achieved by anyone, it always comes with just one happy realization: I need do nothing. I need do nothing. And if I need do nothing, then it doesn't matter what the ego tells me. I can let go and be led, right? And be certain that if there's something for me to say, or somewhere for me to go, or someone for me to call, or something to figure out, it'll be given. I also wanted to mention how this ties for me when I think about Reiki, because we have students in both classes, and we've talked about using Reiki boxes where we put our goal in our box and we put our symbols in our box, and then we Reiki our box every day. And there's different techniques, but that's one simple one. And I think that this is a compatible notion with what we've just discussed. And the reason I think that is that Reiki is coming from a high divine consciousness. And if I put my goals in my Reiki box, then I am asking for the highest good for these goals to occur. And it's just another way for me to set my intention to listen to the Holy Spirit and to invite this divine energy, this divine thought to permeate all of me, all of my life. There's only one here. So if I put my Reiki business in my box, or I put my master's degree in my box, or I put my relationships in my box, it's really like putting them on my altar with Jesus and saying, this is what I feel I want. I'm giving it to you. Help me to allow this to be used to heal me and awaken me, and for the outcome of these goals to be in service to the highest good. And that's how you can start your day, with or without a Reiki box. Imagine the kind of day that you would have and be specific. Remember, you can have all the little goals that you'd like to see happen in your day, and then give it to the Holy Spirit and remind yourself, if I make no decisions myself on my own, this is the day that will be given me. I'm entitled to happiness. That's my function. That's who I am at my core nature. That's really the issue here. We're keeping happiness away from ourselves. This is all to get us to have happiness, not to sacrifice. That's the ego interpretation. Okay, dears. Well, I hope this was helpful, and I will talk to you again soon.